Today we're talking about extensive phone usage, about gadgets being continuation of our bodies, and about how screen time is one of the worst features of an iPhone. Apple has officially proven that your mama was right. Let's start to watch this fascinating interview and completely debunk what those people are saying.
I was so excited when I got it, and today it's like it's an extension of my body.
Yes.
You know,
It's interesting to think about objects of tools as extensions of a body. For example, when I hold this pen, it allows me to write. And when I have those flowers, it's an extension of my body. I can, when I have my cat, it's also an extension of my body. I can do like, he's not a street cat, he was a house cat and someone just kicked him out. Let's watch what's next.
I even have like the little dip in my finger from how much I
Dip in
use
my
it.
finger. From
But I'm
phone.
quite mindful, you know, when I use my phone, like I use my phone because I work on it all the time, but I try and be mindful and pick up a book rather than use my phone, especially like when I'm traveling or flying or whatever. But regardless of that, I'm on my phone a lot.
The problem with picking up books is that they are not too practical to carry. I can't carry a lot of books with me, especially paper books. I always bring with myself a poetry book, a very small book. It's from different authors. I choose what book I bring based on my mood and where I'm going and where I am. Those are not big books, those are different series and they look like this, and I carry them always. Not too practical to carry, and phone is, because in a phone you can do multiple things. There are tools that are very compact and can actually replace your phone better than a book can, though books are amazing. Books are fascinating, but not always too practical to carry a bunch.
I guess I just kind of want your honest take on, like, do you think there's an excessive phone usage, especially in young people? And if
Of course there is. If you're spending more than a couple of hours in your phone, if you are constantly distracted with your phone, probably there is.
so, like, what can be done about it?
I think there is an excessive use
Of course he
the
thinks.
smartphone. And
He's
including
part
my
of a
phone.
problem.
And that's the reason we came out with screen time, honestly, was
Yeah.
we felt like one of the most important things we could do was surface the amount that you're spending. Sort of similar to what we do on the watch.
Screen time is one of the worst features of the iPhone. Apple is doing it from this very statistic perspective. You get information on how much you use this, then you see this awful, amazing number of your hours that you spend on a phone, and most of the time you feel guilty about it. Most of the time you are not okay with it, you want to change it, but you have no actual ways of changing it. Of course, reduce how much you use an app, but if you need this app for whatever, if you genuinely don't know how to resolve your certain everyday or creative or work task without this app, without this extensive phone usage, because our world became quite dependent on doing things online, on doing things digital way, and it creates this awful screen time number, not proposing any idea on how to make it better and how to make our life more offline and, as said, more fun. So you just get numbers, you don't have any solutions.
Which promotes your ability to move more, burn more calories, stand more. But on the phone, we're looking at that from the opposite point of view and saying, do you really want to spend 5 hours a day on your phone, or whatever the number might be?
That is not a good question to ask. I would bet most of people don't want to spend 5 hours on a day on a phone, but without context it's neither good or bad. It's just that it's difficult to find a replacement to that screen time. And that's what I'm saying. You can see this large screen time number, but you don't know how to replace it, what to replace it with. Next.
Yeah.
And also telling you what you're doing on it, where you're spending your time. We also did things like surfacing how many notifications you get. Because sometimes it's not the amount of time, but it's the interruptions.
Right.
And
That what you mean, like,
That's clever. Not amount of time, but interruptions. How many times do you get interrupted by your phone? How many times do you get distracted by your phone? I'm fascinated that most people do have their notifications turned on and not off. People are not guilty of being distracted by their phones constantly, because by design you have notifications. They are constantly distracting you, you're getting them because that's how those features work. And Apple does them this way. Other companies also do it this way. By default, you get notifications. By default, you get sounds. By default, this online culture is just hilarious. I don't know how did we get to that point in which to get 100 of notifications a day is okay, and to act on those notifications is like what you're supposed to do by design. Tim Cook here states that he knows that problem, he knows that distractions are bad, but his company is doing all the same again and again and again, and people are not choosing to turn off their notifications. Most people don't use those functions like screen time, like turning off notifications, etc. People are usually using tech by design. And that is what made Apple a successful company, that you can get a gadget and out of the box it just works. In comparison with other computers or other phones, when you need to know a lot and to have a lot of settings done, here you just open it, it works. And here Tim Cook says that yes, it should work like this. He knows such a problem. He knows that this problem exists, but no, you will, most people will still get hundreds of notifications just because by design it's made like this.
throughout the day, that
Throughout
you keep
the
kind
day.
of checking it. It's like a,
That's right.
yeah.
And I noticed when I remember when I started using the tool before it was released, the aha moment for me was how many notifications I was getting in a day. I was embarrassed by the number I was.
It's absurd. Tim Cook and other people at Apple know about that problem for over 15 years. Imagine 15 years of knowing about notifications, of getting those notifications, being constantly distracted for an entire planet basically. And they can do something about it. Apple were the people who made phones, smartphones, look and work how they look and work now. And they decided to keep it like that. They decided to design our smartphones in a way that we will constantly get notifications and in a way that we will constantly be distracted. Again, most people don't turn this off. If you still have your notifications on, you should turn them off, not just to make them into a silent mode, but just turn those notifications off. You don't get them. You are opening an app and then you see what happened there. And you open an app like a couple of times a day, not more. Of course, there are exceptions. There are apps in which, for example, you have a working day and you're supposed to check them. It's bad, but if it's your work, I guess. But for 90% of applications, this is how it should be done. Notifications turned off. You just log on to them, see if you got something. No, don't have any work there. Close them. Forget about them. Do not get those distracting constant notifications. It's a huge mistake, and it's hilarious that Apple still makes it by design that way, even though they know everything about that problem.
The number I was getting in a day, and I quickly went and looked to see who's sending me all of these, and I started cutting out different notifications from different groups that I felt like, at the end of the day, I can catch up on this at the end of the day.
Exactly.
I don't need to know.
So you see, Tim Cook has quite healthy routine. It's much more healthy than having it constantly distracting you.
at the moment when something is happening.
Yeah.
And so I think screen time is important. And of course, for kids, if you're a parent, then setting some parameters around where they're spending time, what apps they're using, all of this becomes really important.
Yeah.
And we make tools for all of these things.
Yeah, it's
Again, you should make a lot of settings done. You shall make a lot of work to establish it in a way that will be good for you and your kids. People getting Apple products, people getting smartphones overall, usually do use them the way they were designed to be used. With this topic, it's hilariously bad, it's awful. And again, they know everything about it, they have all the statistics. Tim Cook sees that as a problem too, but they are not willing to do anything about it, and it's just worrying. Of course, because Apple and other companies who make, for example, apps for App Store, and not just Apple, Android companies who make for Play Market, people who make applications for Windows, etc., they profit from you using application. And mostly in most applications, the more time you use it, the more they profit. Of course, it's in their interest for you to be as much distracted and as much of using this app as it possibly can. So he knows about that problem, but of course he won't resolve it because that's how he makes money. Nothing bad in business and companies, etc., but I think that we should establish a proper culture around working with technology, digital technology and physical technology, overall technology in our lives.
change on my phone where, like, if I get a notification, my text, like the text that I get doesn't come through, it just says notification.
Right.
And I think that helps because immediately when you see the message, it's hard to ignore.
Right.
So when you just see that it says notification, you're like, all right, I'll leave it for a second and I'll check it when I can, essentially.
That's right.
So I think those parameters are good, especially for, young children or teenagers who just but I think it's good.
Those parameters are not good for young children and teenagers because young children and teenagers don't set those parameters. And their parents do rarely set those parameters. And when they set it, it's not too transparent to use them in the best way possible. But Apple can, by design, do it in a better way. They just don't.
I've always said, if you're looking at your phone more than you're looking in someone's eyes, you're doing the wrong thing.
Right.
You're doing the wrong thing. And so you need to course correct.
Yeah, I think that's really important.
That was strong. If you're looking at your phone more than you're looking at someone's eyes, you're doing something wrong. On individual level and on public level, we should rediscover how we use gadgets, rediscover technology, and this very toxic and bad culture of using your phone, of getting your notifications, of having this very high screen time and using your phone for most of the tasks you do, should be course corrected, of course. Apple is giving our instrument to see how much one does spend on his or her phone, but doesn't give options to course correct. So those options should be done by us. We should invent those options. And I'm now inventing such an option with a physical operating system that I'm creating. It's a system in which with just pen and paper you can solve like a very huge number of your tasks. Both everyday tasks, creative tasks, work tasks, even some public tasks. Many of the things you do can be done not inside your phone, but in this offline physical world. And that's what I'm now trying to figure out, to test with different people, to research and to make it work. Subscribe if you're interested in those topics. I think that we have a very fun adventure on our way. And do you agree with this attitude? What do you think overall? I would be very grateful to see your comments, discussions, and I'll see you in next videos.